before I can issue an opinion on this budget. It has to reduce our borrowing. We cannot continue to borrow every day. We can't. We can't. If this budget does not reduce us having to stay in the line and continue to borrow, I will not vote for it. It's that simple. Now, we don't have to get into the details tonight, but we can't continue.
We have to increase revenue then. You run your business, your expenses get set a certain amount. The only way to do that is increase revenue.
No, you can manage expenses down. We've heard needs analysis. Maybe we need to put in this budget a needs analysis. Maybe we need to put in this budget an administrator in anticipation of the savings that they're going to bring.
We can do that after the new board comes in. We can vote for a budget for an administrator and amend the budget and add to it at that time.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I want to know with this budget though, does it reduce our borrowing? Because if it doesn't, and we've got a $200,000 deeper hole, then we've got to get back to work to know.
We need to produce more revenue.
No, not necessarily. You manage expenses. You can't always produce revenue.
Where are you gonna cut at? I mean, that's what we're talking about, is cutting. Where do you wanna cut at, Ted? If we don't generate revenue,
That's
we
where
gotta make cuts.
that's where I think a needs analysis would be critical, so that we just don't take a meat cleaver, but we do a surgical cut. We look at it in a surgical way, because we don't want to, cut things that are vital. But as Ron said, and again, his words, not mine, he did this analysis. This was 3 years ago. We were 20 and 30% higher in some areas, and that's probably just gotten worse over the last couple of years due to how we've done our budget process. So a needs analysis, I think, would be the next step to make sure that this budget does reduce our dependency on borrowing on our line to operate. We cannot continue to do that.
But when it comes to a county administrator, I'm not for or against, I'm just curious right now. Mr. Phillips, is that your name?
Yes.
Okay, he's coming through and he's saying, okay, between 5 different counties that he had, and he said that the expenses of every one of the county administrators was, some sounded pretty high and some sounded pretty low, okay? And he came across, the businessmen that you are, you always go with return on investment, right? And if this guy's gonna make you money, you want that guy in there, right?
Yes.
Right? Well, we've got jailers that we can take on more people in our county jail and make more money and have some revenue there. And we aren't even considering bringing jailers in unless they pull it out of a budget that has been cut by $200,000, correct? How do you do that?
More prisoners for the past 4 years that I've been on.
Well, I tell you what, we've been fighting this for the last 4 years, whether it be on the county board or through legal problems or whatever, to slow everything up. While we've been sitting here fighting, other counties have been succeeding with their jails.
I don't think so.
Look at Muscatine.
I know, that's Iowa. It's a little bit different than here. That sheriff over there had everything situated before that jail was built.
He had contracts in place.
Well, we were trying to get contracts in place, but we had to go through the legal system to make sure we had everything right. Henry County was over there and they said that they didn't like their contracts because they didn't do a good job on their contract. But we all agreed that we did a pretty good job on this contract that we got right now.
We don't have a contract.
That we've implemented within the last couple of years.
We don't have a contract.
With whom?
How long would it
With
take?
whom?
With anybody, with the marshal.
We don't
service.
have it with Marshal Service.
No.
We don't have it with Cook County
We
at
have
all.
a handshake that says we'll send you our excess prisoner. There is no contract. There's a gentleman's agreement. That's what it is.
And that's what Muscatine has too.
No.
No.
I
What do
don't
they
know
have?
what they have. I haven't
What do they
looked
have?
at them.
Do they have a contract where it says we're gonna give you 100 people a month?
I don't know if it's a specific number.
Especially when we go
Yeah.
into the
In-
lower months.
In Henry County, I don't think that you have your information right about a
No,
success.
the
We
administrator
talked to
was
the-
even here from Henry County that said they didn't have all the i's dotted and the t's crossed.
The bigger picture is this budget has to reduce our dependency on the line. And if it doesn't, I can't support it,
Right.
because we're not gonna continue to borrow.
But the thing that is.
Will you want me
is our
to
revenue
push
stream.
some of the other numbers, Ted, then? I can inflate on expectations of the higher prisoner count that we expect.
Oh, no, we did that last time.
I was gonna say, I can do that,
No,
we didn't
no,
do that here.
Well, but the point is, I'm just asking for an analysis, does this budget reduce our borrowing?
Well, Ted, why don't you do the frickin' analysis then?
I'm not a CPA.
Well, then you better
Neither
learn how
are
to
any
do
of
it.
us.
Because Ron's not a CPA either.
Well, I think Ron could do it.
Why couldn't you do it? You said you're not a CPA, you can't do it because you're not a CPA. Ron's not a CPA, so why should
This
he?
isn't about me, Jeff, this is about a question of asking.
I'm just
Doug-
asking you why you don't do more for the board than just sit around and give orders and
It's
make statements.
what we wanna accomplish. It's what we wanna
That's all
accomplish
you've
here.
done since you've been here.
And
That's not true, Jeff.
No, okay, I'll take
That's
that
not
back.
true, Jeff. Now, come on, that's not true.
Okay, give me a couple of
it's
examples.
close.
How about putting some zoning laws in place that will
Ted,
increase
how many
tourism?
zoning meetings have you been to?
I got the
in the
job
past
done.
year?
I got the job done.
How many?
You did not. You did it
Oh,
illegally.
you know what?
We're on budget.
Oh, now,
Yeah,
it's
we're on
not
budget.
only you
Okay.
steal.
Okay.
now you
This is the
Yeah.
budget, this is the budget I'm presenting. We're laying it on the table. We got 15 days and we'll take a vote on it or more. Let's move on. I'm done. Okay, early retirement incentive. Okay, Ron can, he's got some numbers here for you.
Here's some sheets I'll pass down both sides of the table, it should be enough for both sides. There's names and current salaries on there, so these are for board use only, okay?
You want to give
Well, I think Phyllis, I gave you one this
Yeah,
afternoon.
yeah, you
Well,
did.
Phyllis's went down that way.
Okay.
Anyway, again, this has got, according to the IMRF, there are 12 people that are eligible for early retirement, okay? It's well, it's not impossible, but it'd be extremely difficult to prepare a scenario for every possible combination of those 12 people that may or may not want to retire. Actually, mathematically, that'd be 144 different possible presentations, and I don't think the board wants to sit through that, nor would I want to sit here and prepare that. But listed on here are the names by position and by name of employees, their years of service, and their current salary. And that's as reported to the IMRF, and that's on the basis of which we are currently paying their pension funding, okay? We have been given numbers that says that if any one of those people retired, they could be replaced with a lower paid individual, and that potential salary is listed there. If all 12 people would opt to take early retirement, current salaries would reduce from $550,000 plus change down to $347 plus change. Now, in the paperwork that I read from IMRF, they say that you need to have at least 20% reduction in salary expense really to make the program work. I'm not experienced in actuarial underwriting for pension planning, but I'm taking what the IMRF says. And obviously, if you take a look here, that salary reduction, $202,000 compared to $550, says we would reduce salary expense by almost 37%, which is significantly higher than the 20% minimum that IMRF recommended. So if we took that $202,000 out, that's just raw salary, and that's based on salary plus certain numbers of hours of overtime for deputies and other people that are accustomed to having certain numbers of hours of overtime that's added into these numbers. What's not listed on your sheet is if we add to that, which is a general fund expense, the FICA and Medicare, you're talking another $15,000 on top of that. $15,494, 6.2% FICA and 1.45 for Medicare. Anyway, that total of add up is a little over $218,000 per year if all 12 people would opt to take retirement. Now, if any single one would opt to do that, and we know that there's one on this list that has to do that, because he got elected sheriff. So he's gonna come off of this list and go into a different category of expenses for the county. So there's one person there that we know is gonna reduce our salary expenditure, our salary exposure. That's general fund money. We can save money on the general fund by these people retiring and hiring people at a lower salary. The bottom part of this is numbers directly from IMRF that says if these people retire, now this is all 12 now, we still have to continue to pay their unfunded liability into the pension fund, okay? Each one of these categories, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, all the way up to 10-year repayment plan, obviously is different amounts of money, because they're gonna start drawing their pension, we haven't funded it, they're gonna tack a little interest on top of it, if you know what I'm saying. You know, you gotta pay for the privilege to stretch this out a little bit. If we save $202,000 in salaries, on a 6-year plan, if we take the 6 years and average those 6 years, we would pay $194,000 a year. Now, I know that's apples and oranges, because salary comes from general fund, IMRF does not come from general fund, okay? It's still expense to the county, okay? The first year on each of these plans is a certain dollar amount, year 2 is incrementally higher, year 3 is incrementally higher than that, and goes on only because you're stretching the time out and you're paying for that privilege of not paying them in lump sum dollars, okay? The 6-year payback would typically show a positive cash flow to the county in general for 6 years. Then the IMRF would be completely paid, and the savings would go back to whatever you're saving from salaries, okay? It would appear that, you know, even though it would cost the county more money, the county would actually save more if they went with a 10-year plan per year, only because they're stretching it out over a longer period of time. You know, instead of paying you back $50 a month, I'm gonna be paying back $75 a month in the other scenario. Anyway, it's just numbers, and it's all mathematically based. Couple other comments I wanted to make. Obviously, it's impossible to predict the behavior of what each of these 12 employees will do. The first year, as I mentioned, their premium is less than subsequent years, so year 1 it might be $10, year 2 is $12, year 3 is $13. But in each case, as I looked at those schedules, like taking year 6, for example, if we had a $7,600 positive cash flow to the county, not to one particular fund, but to the county in total, that $7,600 is greater than what the increase in premium for year 2 is. And it's greater than what that increase in premium from year 2 to year 3 is, okay? So this is really a worst-case scenario as far as showing, you know, what the savings is to the county salary-wise and what it would cost us. I would entertain some questions. I'm not an expert on actuarial funding. I mean, I know when I ran my credit union, we had big fights with PBGC, the Pension Guaranteed Benefit Group. And you're familiar with those people, aren't you? And, you know, we just didn't see some things the way they did. But this is IMRF, and we can't change what they do. They are established by law.
On how these figures match up with the ones I produced.
They're pretty close. There were like 4 numbers on the salaries that got tweaked a little bit, but as far as the salaries were concerned, as far as the potential salaries, they were very close. Obviously, the current salary and the IMRF numbers on the bottom, I took those directly from IMRF. You know, so that's on how their pension fund is currently being administered.
So is it year 6 that we actually start to make money then?
As far as the total county, yes. Again, year 1, we would save money in the general fund.
So it costs us more money.
But it's gonna cost us, potentially in the IMRF, because obviously we're gonna have to we're gonna have to continue to fund these people that retire, plus we're gonna incur the liability from the new people that we hire.
So what do we lose in year 1 through 4? Does those losses, are they made up by years 6, 7, 8, 9,
They only
10?
gave options 5 through 10. I can't tell you what years 1 through 4 would be, because IMRF did not show those numbers.
We could leave the IMRF levy high and take that loss early, and then be done with it forever, once we paid it off.
This is really a two-sided, two-edged sword. Number one, we need to determine, or the board needs to determine, obviously, the board, not me. The board needs to determine if they want to pursue this venue, to offer early retirement to these 12 employees. And these are the only 12 in the county that's eligible, and it's only open for a certain window period of time. The other part of it is if the board commits themselves to pursuing this path, then they can get a head count and say, okay, are you at least interested in doing this? And we can refine the numbers based on, if someone says, I'm absolutely not gonna retire, I'm gonna work another 3 years or 5 years, or family won't let me do it, or I need the higher income, then we know we can drill this down to specific people that wouldn't want to retire, and we can get actual numbers back from IMRF that says, okay, we've got these 6 people, what's it gonna cost?
That's reasonable.
But at this point, we're shooting, throwing a dart at one out of 144 possibilities.
Well, I think it makes sense to move forward on this. I'm still concerned about year 1 through 4.
You've got a question back there, Ted.
It's not published on it.
Yeah, you're part of the meeting, so yes.
This doesn't look at the trickle down to, if someone retired and then someone from within took their place at a lesser salary, okay, that part you're looking at. But then someone came in at starting salary to replace that person. In some cases, it could be 4 shifts.
It could be.
Which would
but
save,
if you've
each
got
one
5
would save
people-
money.
If you've got 5 people in a department and this first person retires and this person moves here and this person moves here and this person moves here, really the only salary you're replacing is the guy on the very bottom end of the totem pole.
That's right.
Because everybody else just assumed the position and the salary of the guy above them.
And that's one of
There
the.
may be a little more additional savings there because of potential step grades and whatnot, but it's still, this is based on the high guy, the big dog leaving, and the new pup coming in the bottom.
Well, why don't we recommend to the board that we continue on with this study, and we'll know more when we go to offer it.
So do we need to, we need to offer it, Ted, so let's recommend to the board that we offer this.
5 years before we're making money.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. General fund is gonna make money day one. Because if someone decides to retire that's making $60,000 a year, and we hire someone to replace them at the bottom end of the pole at $40,000, we've already saved $20,000 out of the general fund. The problem is in the IMRF. We still have to continue to fund their unfunded liability, and they will spread it out over from 5 to 10 years, which we still have to pay that out of IMRF, not out of the general fund. But in addition to this, and which we don't know, we don't have the numbers for, is then you still have to start funding the pension responsibility for the new people that you hire. Okay, going forward, and those are numbers that I don't know.
That's not calculated into this.
Or obviously pension calculations have to do with salary, have to do with age, and so on and so on.
The levy for IMRF, just including, I think the 5-year was what we put in here, was $700,000. 4 years ago, it was $1 million something. So we've already dropped that IMRF levy way back anyway. So, we've already reduced taxes there anyway. So,
That was one of the benefits of disposing of the hospital and nursing home.
Jed, I got a question now. Does it automatically, if deputy 1 goes up, or deputy 2 goes up to deputy 1, that they would get the same salary?
No. I think that's part of your whole total needs analysis.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this, you need to determine, what do we need
No.
when we restaff this whole place?
If you're just looking at those numbers that are on that sheet, the answer is no.
Okay, and what are the figures saying to you on this page? Because I wanna be on the same page with you.
That figure right there is with overtime,
Okay,
which
But all three
had
of
a
these-
question about, even calculating overtime in your current salary
I took it.
for IMRF.
I was given the numbers, and we
Yeah.
figured like for deputies, like 7 hours a week, time and a half pay, 52 weeks out of the year.
They're saying that's an average.
That's their average.
Well, that salary looks a lot more than average.
yeah,
That's
but
the
my
real
my
salary,
question
that's
is,
the
these
correct
top three deputies, do they all make the same amount, let alone without the overtime? Do they all make the same amount?
Without,
Well-
the new sheriff would staff his department, I can't answer that question.
And
that
keep in
goes
mi-
into this needs and organization rules.
Right. I
Keep in mind, this is
understand
by years of service
that. Okay,
and,
so the point is everybody has a different salary,
yeah,
okay, right?
yeah.
Okay, what I'm saying is, say a guy, one of the deputies leaves, and we wanna supply that deputy, well, we go up through the deputies, and, what we've got is our jailers, and then, our people, and we move them on up the ladder. That doesn't automatically say if that jailer's making $40,000 a year, he's gonna be making 55, right?
No,
It doesn't. No.
Okay, well,
There's no
that's,
guarantee of that.
that's what I'm trying to figure out,
Yeah.
because we're trying to figure these salaries, and I realize that this is the overtime figures and that.
Yeah.
But if we don't hire more people in, we can't complain about the overtime.
These potential salaries are just based on the beginning wages plus the overtime at the beginning wages. That's where the 39,000 comes from.
I see, but I also see that there's one of these salaries that is pretty high.
Well, that's because of their present,
Of their
pay
over-
grade and their overtime.
And their overtime.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is
But
people.
these salaries, these are what they actually receive.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's current
These are
stuff.
actual.
This is something that in two budget meetings, or two budget years, we are gonna offer,
Yep.
see what's out there. We ought to have people to offer. We promised and promised and promised.
Can I make a motion to send this to full board for, or offer early
I
retirement?
wanna ask one more question. I have one more question.
Well, I'm just making a motion.
Okay, I wanna ask one more question here. And maybe this is a question for, if we take this forward and we offer this, and let's just say out of this whole list, 6 people, 5 people, I don't know what the number is, hit on it and say, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the early retirement, and then we do the numbers, and we say, oh, well, that's not gonna be a savings to us, it's gonna have to be more people to be a savings, can we pull it back? Once
Actually-
it's offered, we have to let them out.
Every individual is savings.
It's gonna be a savings no matter which way you look at it.
Well, I'm looking at the 20% thing, you said, if you don't,
I can't speak for the board and how they would offer that, but I would think that, we would need to find out, based on this number of people coming forward, new people being hired, what that additional cost to the county through IMRF would be, which would be numbers that would actually be added to the grid on the bottom of the page. Because these IMRF numbers are only to fund the rest of the liability for the current employees. Obviously, we're going to incur, and the other number we don't know on this whole mix is the cost of insurance. We may have 10 of these 12 people that's got, employee, spouse, and dependents, and we may end up with 12 new people that says, I'm just me,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa. I mean, we don't know.
We just have to assume that they're gonna be the same ratio as this one. The present one.
We won't know till we offer it.
Yeah.
But I would think that probably, in my opinion, and take this for what it's worth, is that I would typically, privately poll each of these 12 people and see if there is, in fact, serious intent to exercise this if the board votes to go forward with it. So we can get some good hard numbers.
I've got a question. Is this being offered through the union, or is this being offered by the county itself? Okay, so it has nothing to do with the Okay.
So, Ron, are you recommending that we find out who wants it and then make the final decision?
I think so. And I think in conjunction with that, based on these proposed or potential salaries, we contact IMRF and get a quote on what that pension funding liability would be to the county. And I know the first thing they're gonna say is, well, we're gonna need to know their age, and we're gonna need to know their sex, and all this other kind of stuff that goes into actuarial underwriting. But we can get a ballpark guess. We'll say, okay, all 12 of them are 30 years old, and they're half male, half female. Give us a price.
So,
They can move through
Ron,
quickly.
what do you think is left that needs done before the board could make a final decision?
I think we need to get a head count from these 12 people, yea or nay, if they're interested. That's not a commitment on their part,
Okay?
but I think some people are gonna come back and say, no, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not ready to retire, I can't afford to retire. Okay? And I think we need to get that other contingent liability, you know, for the proposed future liability for those new people. And we can base that, get those numbers based on how many people are gonna retire.
Okay, so we're not quite there on our analysis.
We just don't have enough data,
Okay.
and that's really based on the population of the retiree pool.
If it's not on
Ed, we're gonna have to either go through this real quick or adjourn and read it.
Well, let's table this. That seems like we've got a little bit more work to do from what Ron told us. We got claims real quick here. We got claims of, well, where did that little bugger go?
$371,555.
Thank you. There it is. Make a motion to approve the claims.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Other business, Jeff, you said you had?
We can cover that in the regular board meeting, Jeff.
Okay. Public comment? Jason? Todd?
On the early retirement, I urge this board to use caution. The $202,000 in savings seems a little high on 12 employees. That comes up to about $16,000 an employee. And basing that on union contracts that are in place with this county, that might be a little tough to attain because you're gonna have seniority issues you're gonna have to deal with, and it's gonna be tough to bring somebody in at a starting pay grade to replace somebody who's been there for a long time, because more than likely they've moved up in positions to where that's not gonna work. Another thing, my understanding, when this county board approved the line of credit, it was to bolster the general fund for the sole purpose of timing issues. Unless I missed it, I never did see anything that came from this board that said that they would allow the highway department to borrow money for this. That is not a general fund issue. I think that probably needs to be looked at a little closer. It was never approved by this board. The board approved using that line of credit to support the general fund, and that was it. And Mr. Phillips, I appreciate you sticking around. The question I had was,
We have to move. We've
Yeah.
gotta-
the question I had was, are you, contract times? I'll talk to you about it.
Meeting adjourned?
So, move.
Second.
All in favor, adjourned?
Aye. Aye.
I got that.